In the year 1692, a distinct architectural and topographical anomaly began to take root in Essex County, Massachusetts. The standard historical narrative treats the events of that year as a sociological tragedy. It is widely recorded as a localized outbreak of religious panic and mass hysteria that drove accused outcasts into the surrounding wilderness. But if we examine the official colonial documentation of the era, like this Massachusetts colony indenture from 1690, we see a highly organized bureaucratic reality. The colonial government documented its actions with absolute precision. Looking closely at the precise structural records from this period, the idea that the Salem Panic was a spontaneous burst of rural superstition falls apart. The archival evidence suggests a coordinated movement of specific individuals. While the public focus remained on the trials in Salem, a small group of specialists was redirecting the colony's resources toward a highly targeted architectural project. This migration to the Miskatonic Valley appears to be the primary objective, with the social chaos in Salem providing the necessary administrative cover for a massive, coordinated structural re-engineering of Arkham. The primary architect of this migration was a woman named Keziah Mason. Strip away all the folkloric assumptions. Mason operated as an apex mathematician rather than a traditional practitioner of the occult. In this framework, witchcraft is the deliberate, highly precise manipulation of complex geometric principles used to bend the physical environment. To understand her work, we have to look at what physicists call phase space. By distorting three-dimensional phase space, a mathematician can force a localized geographic area to intersect with infinite dimensional realms. We observe the physical reality of this math in surviving historical structures from the colonial era, built with massive, heavy timber frames designed to withstand immense spatial pressure. Occultists like Mason do not cast spells. They calculate precise angles that allow higher dimensional planes to violently intersect with our own. Look at this standard architectural blueprint. The bedrock axioms of Euclidean design rely on strict 90-degree angles and linear logic to keep a structure standing. Every piece of solid matter maps neatly onto an X, Y, and Z axis: up, down, left, right, forward, back. Watch what happens when a fourth-dimensional shape, a hypercube, passes through that three-dimensional plane. Because our physical world can only display 3 dimensions, the higher dimensional shape appears as a bizarre, constantly shifting cross-section of impossible geometry. This overlap creates topological distortion. Within the intersection, the standard rules of physics and spatial relation break down completely. When you subject standard 17th century building materials to topological distortion, the wood and stone buckle and warp under the strain of holding dimensions together. Non-Euclidean architecture operates as a structural mechanism. It permanently bridges the gap between dimensions. The epicenter of this spatial anomaly is located in French Hill, at 197 East Pickman Street. On a standard floor plan, everything appears normal, but here, a person walking down a straight hallway actually navigates a grid curvature, placing them on the floor above without a staircase. This spatial loop returns you to your starting point from a different direction. The warped phase space also causes parallel corridors to physically intersect. 2 hallways that should run side by side permanently overlap in the same physical space. For the uninitiated navigator, the building's geometry acts as a literal trap, designed to disorient and isolate anyone who doesn't understand the math. Every impossible angle and overlapping room was a deliberate engineering choice made by Keziah Mason in 1692. The witch house operates as a meticulously calibrated machine, built to transition matter from one plane of existence to another. We see the apex of this engineering in the tight, claustrophobic confines of the attic on Pickman Street. If you measure the specific angles where the walls connect to the sloping roofline, the geometry contradicts itself. These are physical enclosed triangles, where the sum of the interior angles does not equal 180 degrees. That is a mathematical impossibility in a Euclidean space. By existing in a state of impossibility, these angles function as physical gateways, creating an open channel to the boundless ether. These architectural anomalies create a localized rupture in three-dimensional space, turning the attic into a permanent transit point for higher dimensional matter. This distortion could not be contained to a single room. If we pull back, we can examine the macroscopic topography of the entire French Hill district. This animated map illustrates how the mathematical manipulation at East Pickman Street acted like a localized infection, radiating outward. This outward pressure forced the surrounding architecture to physically buckle under the stress of these intersecting geometries. We can see the physical evidence of this radiating distortion in the heavy, slumping lines of the Colonial gambrel roofs found throughout the city. The famous sagging of these Georgian homes is not a result of age. It is the direct result of localized non-Euclidean gravity pulling on the timber. Tracing the fault lines of this distortion reveals a clear path connecting the warped streets of French Hill, the flow of the Miskatonic River, and the ancient standing stones on the unvisited island in the center of the water. Arkham's urban layout functions as a massive, city-wide occult circuit board. This split screen compares standard tabletop maps against Lovecraftian design. Left, the Euclidean baseline. Rooms occupy fixed spaces, corridors are linear, boundaries are absolute. Right, the Arkham model. Corridors overlap without intersecting, and distinct separate rooms occupy the exact same physical space simultaneously. You can weaponize this geometry. By using impossible angles as deliberate environmental hazards, a navigator's spatial intuition becomes their greatest liability. You have to abandon the assumption of safe geometry. In the Arkham model, the building itself is the primary antagonist. Bringing this theoretical math back to the physical reality of modern Arkham, the effects of 1692 are still etched into the landscape. You see it in the crumbling Georgian balustrades and the sagging roofs that brood over the darkly muttering waters of the Miskatonic River. In this municipality, the traditional boundary between an inhabitant and their environment has been erased. The 1692 terraforming ensured that the physical infrastructure of the city functions as an active participant in the geometry of the outside. Keziah Mason did not flee the king's men by running into the dark. She calculated the angles required to fold the dark around her. Today, Arkham stands as a permanent, mathematically precise monument to a reality that exists beyond human perception.